I missed Christmas dinner due to urgent work. But when my neighbor sent a video of my son-in-law hitting my daughter in the face and his mother splashing a glass of wine right into her eyes, I rushed over like lightning. I kicked in the door, burst into the house, and said just 5 words. The son-in-law and mother-in-law panicked and started fleeing in terror. Before continuing, subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is in your region right now. The phone rang while I was reviewing case files in my Sacramento hotel room. The moment I heard Caitlin's voice, I knew something was wrong. 30 years as a court mediator teaches you to read people through silence, through the spaces between words. My daughter had those spaces tonight. Dad, I know it's last minute, but would you come for Christmas dinner? It would mean so much to Olivia. I set down my pen. Outside, December rain drummed against the window. Sweetheart, I'm scheduled for mediation on the 24th. The Bennett estate case. You remember I told you about it? Oh, that single syllable carried more weight than a legal brief. Right, of course. Work. Caitlin. No, Dad, really, it's fine. We understand. Derek says you're always busy anyway, so... Derek, my son-in-law, the man I'd watched charm my daughter into marriage 5 years ago, the man who'd promised to take care of her when I bought them that house in Portland, the man whose voice I could now hear in the background, sharp and mocking. Tell the old man we'll manage just fine without him. My daughter's breath caught. Derek, stop. What? I'm just being honest. When was the last time he actually showed up for us? I felt my jaw tighten. The mediator in me recognized manipulation tactics. The father in me wanted to drive the 10 hours to Portland right then and tell Derek exactly what I thought of his honesty. But I'd learned long ago that emotion was for home. Logic was for winning. Caitlin, I said carefully, is everything okay there? Everything's great. Too bright, too fast. Derek's just stressed about work, insurance sales. You know how it is around the holidays. Everyone wants their policies updated before the new year. Right. I made my voice neutral, professional. Well, I'm sorry about Christmas. This mediation has been scheduled for months. The family's been fighting over their mother's estate for 2 years. If I don't settle it now... I understand, Dad. Really. She was already retreating, putting up walls. We'll send you pictures. Olivia's going to be so disappointed, though. She made you a card. My granddaughter, 5 years old, gap-toothed smile, drawing pictures of dinosaurs with crayons. The thought of disappointing her felt like a stone in my chest. Tell her Grandpa will make it up to her, I promise. Sure? Merry Christmas, Dad. She hung up before I could respond. I stared at my phone, watching the screen fade to black, and that's when I heard it. Just before the connection died, Derek's voice again, louder now, triumphant. Finally! The old man won't ruin our holiday. I set the phone down carefully, very carefully. Because if I didn't, I might have thrown it through the window. The thing about being a mediator is that you spend your days listening to people lie. They lie about money, about property, about love. They sit across from each other in my office and craft elaborate fictions about who said what, who did what, who deserves what. After 3 decades, I can spot a lie like a fisherman spots ripples in water. Caitlin was lying, not about the small things, about the big things. The things that mattered. I opened my laptop and pulled up the Bennett case files, but the words blurred together. Instead, I kept hearing my daughter's voice, that forced brightness, that desperate cheer, the way she'd cut the conversation short when Derek's tone shifted from mockery to menace. When was the last time I'd actually seen her? Thanksgiving. 6 weeks ago. She'd worn long sleeves despite the heated house. She'd stayed in the kitchen most of the evening, avoiding conversation. And when she'd reached for the cranberry sauce, I'd seen it. A bruise on her wrist. Purple-yellow, finger-shaped. I bumped into the cabinet, she'd said when I'd asked. I hadn't pushed, hadn't wanted to believe what my instincts were screaming. Now, staring at my phone in a Sacramento hotel room while rain hammered the window, I realized my mistake. My phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. Mr. Harrison, we need to talk. Urgent. Then another message, an attachment, a video file. The sender identified themselves. Thomas Lindstrom, Caitlin's neighbor, the high school history teacher who lived across the street, the one who'd helped them move in 5 years ago. I didn't recognize his number, but I knew who he was. We'd met twice, maybe 3 times. Polite waves, brief conversations about property lines and garbage collection schedules. Why would he be texting me at 9 o'clock on a Friday night? I clicked the video file. The screen loaded slowly, buffering. Then I saw my dining room, the one I'd picked out with Caitlin when we'd furnished the house, the table where I'd imagined holiday dinners and birthday celebrations, and the ordinary sacred moments of family life. My daughter stood near the kitchen doorway in a green dress, the Christmas tree lights blinking behind her. She was holding a serving dish. Derek was shouting. I couldn't hear the audio yet. The video was still loading, but I could see his mouth moving, see his face contorted with rage, see him grab Caitlin's arm, see him push her against the wall. The video continued loading. Sound crackled through my phone speaker. Told you to get the right sauce. I specifically told you. I watched my son-in-law hit my daughter across the face. I watched the video 3 times. The first time, shock. The second time, rage. The third time, the mediator in me took over, cataloging details, evidence, witness testimony, the kind of information that wins cases. Derek was drunk. You could see it in his movements, the exaggerated gestures. He hit Caitlin with an open palm, hard enough that her head snapped to the side. She stumbled against the counter, and that's when Gloria entered the frame. Derek's mother, I'd met her once, at the wedding. Cold politeness for me, barely concealed contempt for Caitlin. She'd moved in a year ago after her 3rd divorce. In the video, she stood from the dining table, wineglass in hand, and watched Derek shove my daughter again. Then Gloria walked over and threw wine in Caitlin's face. "You always ruin everything, you useless girl!" In the corner of the frame, barely visible, I saw Olivia, my 5-year-old granddaughter, crying, pressed against the wall, watching her mother get attacked. I closed the video and called Thomas Lindstrom. He answered immediately. "Mr. Harrison? When did this happen?" "About an hour ago. I was taking out trash. Heard shouting, looked over and saw—" He paused. "I filmed through the window. I almost called police myself, but I thought you should decide." Smart man. He understood this was more than a police matter. This was strategy. "Send me the original file. Email. Right now." I was already pulling up my laptop, searching driving routes. "And Thomas, thank you. Are you coming back? I'll be there in 3 hours." The drive north gave me time to remember, time to see where I'd failed. I remembered Caitlin at 7, falling off her bike, crying on the sidewalk. I'd picked her up, cleaned her scraped knees while she sniffled against my shoulder. "It's okay, sweetheart. Dad's got you." I remembered her high school graduation, the way she'd searched the crowd until she found me, the way her face had lit up. Her mother had died 3 years before, and it had been just us against the world. I remembered meeting Derek. Charming, smooth. Too smooth, maybe, but I dismissed my doubts. Caitlin loved him. Who was I to question her judgment? I remembered their wedding. Derek promising to cherish her, protect her. His mother looking at Caitlin during the ceremony, not with joy, but with calculation, like assessing an asset. I remembered buying them the house. $340,000. Derek had been enthusiastic, full of promises. "I'll take care of her, sir. You don't have to worry." And I'd believed him. Then came the drift. Caitlin calling less often, making excuses. Always too busy, too stressed, too something. Gloria moving in accelerated everything. Suddenly every conversation with my daughter felt scripted, performed. Last Thanksgiving I'd seen the bruise on her wrist. "I bumped the cabinet," she'd said. I hadn't pushed, hadn't wanted to believe what my instincts screamed. That was my mistake. The rain hammered my windshield as I drove north, but I kept my hands steady, my speed exactly at the limit. Vincent Harrison didn't operate on emotion. Vincent Harrison operated on strategy. By the time I crossed into Oregon, I had the beginning of a plan. I thought about the house, my name on the deed, my money in the down payment, the roof repair, the new heating system. Derek and Gloria living in my property, on my generosity, while they terrorized my daughter. I thought about Derek's drinking, his arrogance, his assumption that the old man was too busy to notice. I thought about Gloria's cruelty, treating Caitlin like a servant in her own home. I thought about the cameras. 3 months ago I'd installed security cameras. Smart thermostats, I told Derek. He'd barely looked at them. Why would he? Just boring home upgrades. But they weren't thermostats. They were HD cameras, recording to a cloud server only I could access. Because 3 months ago I'd started suspecting, started preparing. The mediator in me had hoped I was wrong. The father in me had known better. Now, driving through December darkness with Thomas's video, saved and 3 months of recorded evidence in the cloud, I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not rage anymore. Rage was too hot, too uncontrolled. This was justice. Derek and Gloria thought they'd won, thought they'd isolated Caitlin, convinced her this was normal, that this was her fault. They thought I was just an old man, too busy, too distant, too weak to matter. They were about to learn otherwise. I crossed into Portland at 2 a.m. Empty streets, Christmas lights blinking in darkened windows. I drove past the park where I'd pushed Caitlin on swings, past her old elementary school, past every memory of the daughter I'd raised alone. Finally, I turned onto her street. The house lights were still on. Through the front window, I could see movement. Derek and Gloria, still awake, probably still drinking, congratulating themselves on another successful night. I parked across the street, pulled out my phone, made one call. Portland Police, non-emergency line. I need to report a domestic assault. I have video evidence, multiple angles. The suspects are currently at the scene. I gave them the address. My address, technically. Officers are on the way, sir. Please stay where you are. Oh, I'm not staying here, I said, and ended the call. Then I got out of my car, walked across the street to my daughter's house, my house, and kicked in the front door. The door splintered inward with a satisfying crack. I'd installed that lock myself 5 years ago, knew exactly where the frame was weakest. Funny how preparation pays off in unexpected ways. Derek and Gloria jumped from the couch like guilty teenagers caught drinking Dad's whiskey, which, given the bottle of bourbon on the coffee table, wasn't far from the truth. Their faces cycled through shock, confusion, then Derek's default expression, aggression masquerading as confidence. "What the hell do you think you're—" "Sit down!" My voice was ice. Not loud. I've never needed volume to make a point. 30 years of mediating disputes taught me that the quietest voice in the room is often the most dangerous. Derek's mouth opened and closed. He looked like a fish trying to remember how to breathe. Gloria recovered faster, her face twisting into that practiced expression of wounded dignity I'd seen her deploy at the wedding when someone forgot to compliment her dress. "Vincent, you can't just break into—" "My house." I stepped inside, glass crunching under my shoes. "You're living in my house, my name on the deed, my money in every wall, every fixture, every comfort you've been enjoying while you terrorized my daughter." That's when Caitlin appeared in the kitchen doorway. The bruise under her eye was already darkening, purple-black against her pale skin. Her lip was split. The green dress from the video had wine stains down the front, dried and stiff. She looked at me, and I saw something I hadn't seen in months. Hope. "Dad, pack a bag, sweetheart. You and Olivia. You're coming with me." Derek found his courage in the bourbon. He stood up, swaying slightly, trying to make himself bigger. "She's not going anywhere. Caitlin, tell your father." "I called the police," I said, still not raising my voice. "They'll be here in approximately 4 minutes. I have video evidence of you assaulting your wife. Multiple angles. High definition. Time-stamped. I suggest you use those 4 minutes wisely." I watched the color drain from Derek's face. It was almost artistic, really, like watching paint fade in reverse. His skin went from angry red to pink to white, to a sort of gray-green that suggested his stomach was having second thoughts about that bourbon. "What video?" But his voice cracked. He knew. Somewhere in his alcohol-soaked brain, he knew. I pointed to the corner of the room. "Those aren't smart thermostats. They're security cameras. Have been for 3 months. Everything you've done, everything you've said, everything you thought was private, recorded, saved, time-stamped, backed up to a cloud server you'll never access." Gloria made a sound like a stepped-on cat. "You were spying on us?" "I was protecting my investment, and my daughter." I turned to look at her directly. "Tell me, Gloria, how does it feel knowing that every cruel word, every petty manipulation, every moment you made Caitlin feel small is now evidence, documented, preserved, ready to be played in court? She stood up, grabbing her purse like it was a weapon. You're insane. Derek, we should... Run? I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. By all means. The police will love that. Nothing says innocent quite like fleeing the scene. Derek was staring at the cameras now, and I could practically see the calculations happening behind his eyes. 3 months. How many times had he hit Caitlin? How many times had he screamed, threatened, intimidated? How many times had Gloria thrown her verbal poison while he cheered her on? You can't, Derek started, but I cut him off. I can. I did. And here's what's going to happen next. I checked my watch. In 2 minutes, Portland police will arrive. They'll arrest you for domestic assault. They'll arrest Gloria as an accessory? Yes, Gloria. Throwing wine in someone's face while your son beats them counts as assault. You'll spend the night in jail. Then we'll see how this plays out in court. Sirens in the distance, getting closer. Derek's face twisted. You bastard. You think you can just... I think I can protect my daughter. I think I can use the legal system exactly as it was designed. I think I can make sure that what happened here tonight never happens again. I paused. And I think you should have treated Caitlin better when you had the chance. The sirens were loud now, right outside. Red and blue lights splashed across the walls, painting everything in patriotic colors that seemed deeply ironic given the circumstances. Derek lunged for the back window. Gloria followed him, her heels clicking frantically across the hardwood floor I'd paid to install. I didn't try to stop them. Why would I? Where were they going to go? Out into the December night, drunk and panicked, with police cars already pulling up outside. I walked to the kitchen, where Caitlin stood, frozen. Go get Olivia. Pack what you need for tonight. We'll come back for the rest tomorrow. Dad, I'm sorry. Don't. I took her face in my hands, careful of the bruises. Don't apologize for being a victim. Don't apologize for his choices. Don't apologize for any of this. She started crying. I held her while the police knocked on the broken door, while Derek and Gloria tried to explain why they were climbing out the back window, while my granddaughter emerged from her bedroom, rubbing sleep from her eyes. And I thought about how I'd failed to see this coming, how I'd dismissed the signs, trusted the wrong people, believed that distance and work were acceptable excuses for not protecting my own child. That mistake ended tonight. But the consequences? Those were just beginning. 3 a.m. The house lights painted everything in harsh clarity. Police! Hands where we can see them! 2 officers came through the broken door, hands on weapons. I raised my empty hands. Vincent Harrison, homeowner. I called this in. The suspects tried to flee through the back window. Behind me, Caitlin drew a sharp breath as more officers appeared around the house, flashlights cutting through darkness. Derek and Gloria stood in the backyard, caught halfway through the window. Derek's shirt was torn. Gloria had lost a shoe, both trying to explain simultaneously why climbing out a window at 3 a.m. was perfectly reasonable. The lead officer, Rodriguez, lowered her weapon and studied me with professional skepticism. Sir, step outside while we secure the scene. Of course. I gestured toward Caitlin in the kitchen doorway. Olivia pressed against her. This is my daughter, Caitlin Marshall, and my granddaughter. Caitlin is the victim. I have video evidence, multiple angles of tonight's assault. Rodriguez's expression shifted. She'd expected chaos. Instead, documentation. You have video? Security cameras. 3 months of footage. Cloud-backed. I pulled out my phone, cued to Thomas's video. This is from the neighbor who witnessed tonight. I also have interior cameras showing a pattern of abuse. Rodriguez called her partner. They watched, their faces hardening. When Derek's hand connected with Caitlin's face, Rodriguez's jaw tightened. I can provide access to the full archive, all time-stamped and authenticated. Caitlin gave her statement. Short sentences, factual, voice steady despite tears. Officers photographed her injuries, documented the wine-stained dress, collected Thomas's information. Derek, being escorted through in handcuffs, tried one last play. This is a misunderstanding. Caitlin, tell them we had an argument. Couples fight. I watched him. This man who'd promised to cherish my daughter, who'd accepted my generosity and repaid it with violence. His face was flushed, his eyes calculating even now. Sir, Rodriguez said to Derek, you have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it. Gloria, getting the same speech, kept looking at me with pure hatred. Good. Better than fake pleasantness. They loaded both into separate patrol cars. Derek was still talking, voice muffled, probably spinning stories. Rodriguez returned with a business card. Domestic violence unit will contact you tomorrow. We'll need official statements. Good job keeping that footage. Most victims don't have this evidence. Most victims don't have a court mediator for a father. I pocketed the card. What happens now? They'll be booked and held. Arraignment probably Monday. Judge will likely issue a restraining order based on the video. After the police left, I helped Caitlin pack. Olivia was asleep again, the resilience of children letting her drift off despite chaos. Caitlin moved through the house like a ghost, touching familiar objects, saying goodbye. "Dad," she said as we loaded the car, "what happens next?" I looked at the house, my house, where I'd imagined happiness, where instead my daughter had been broken down piece by piece. Next, I close the trunk. Next, we make sure this never happens again. We use every legal tool available. Derek and Gloria learn that actions have consequences. She climbed in. He'll fight back. He'll hire a lawyer. Let him. I started the engine. I've spent 3 decades watching people fight over money, property, pride. I know every tactic, every manipulation, every legal maneuver. Derek thinks he's clever because he sold insurance and charmed out of drunk driving charges. He has no idea what he's up against. We drove through empty streets toward my condo. Caitlin stared out, processing how her life had shattered and reformed in 3 hours. I should have left earlier. He should never have hit you. I kept my eyes on the road. Don't take ownership of his choices. That's what people like Derek and Gloria count on, making victims feel responsible. At my place, I set up Caitlin and Olivia in the guest room. Made tea, neither of us drank. Sat in the dark and thought about what came next. The arrest was step 1. Necessary, not sufficient. Derek would make bail. His brother would scrape together money. Gloria would slink back to whatever poor soul supported her. They'd regroup, hire a lawyer, craft their counter-narrative. But I had something they didn't. Evidence, documentation, a very specific skill set. I opened my laptop and drafted emails. First, to Sarah Kennedy, the domestic violence attorney I'd worked with on mediations. Sharp, ruthless, and she hated abusers with passion. Second, to my accountant. I needed documentation of every dollar I'd put into that house. Every payment, every repair, every improvement. Third, to my property lawyer. That house was mine. Derek and Gloria were about to learn the legal definition of unlawful occupancy. As dawn broke over Portland, painting my windows gold and pink, I reviewed my work. 3 emails, 3 specialists, 3 angles of attack. Derek thought tonight was the end. Police called. Drama concluded. He had no idea it was just the beginning. Vincent Harrison didn't operate on emotion or impulse. Vincent Harrison operated on strategy. After 30 years mediating the worst family conflicts, I know exactly how to dismantle someone's life using nothing but patience, preparation, and the law. Derek and Gloria had made a critical mistake. They'd hurt my daughter, assuming I was too distant to notice, too busy to care, too old to fight. They were wrong on all counts, and by the time I was finished, they'd understand exactly what it cost to underestimate a father protecting his child. Christmas morning arrived with church bells and fresh snow. Caitlin and Olivia slept late, exhaustion finally claiming them. I sat at my kitchen table with coffee and my laptop, watching the city wake up. My phone rang at 9. Sarah Kennedy. Even on Christmas, attorneys who specialize in domestic violence don't take days off. "Vincent, I got your email? All of it." Her voice had that sharp edge I remembered from the Williamson custody case. She'd eviscerated a father hiding assets and bruises. "Can you meet me at your office in an hour?" "You're working Christmas?" "You kicked in a door at 3 a.m. I think we're past conventional schedules." I heard her smile. "Besides, I want to see this evidence before Derek's lawyer starts spinning fairy tales." My mediation office occupied the 3rd floor of a renovated warehouse in the Pearl District. Soundproofing and privacy. Family disputes get loud. Now, spreading Thomas's video and my camera footage across the conference table, I was grateful for discretion. Sarah watched everything twice. 52, gray hair pulled back severely, reading glasses perched like a weapon. When Derek's hand connected with Caitlin's face, her expression didn't change. When Gloria threw the wine, her pen moved faster. How long have the interior cameras been recording? 3 months, since September. I pulled up the cloud archive. 73 days of footage. Not all relevant, but there are patterns. Show me. I queued up bookmarked clips. September 15th. Derek shoving Caitlin against the refrigerator during an argument about grocery bills. October 3rd. Gloria berating Caitlin for 20 minutes about raising Olivia wrong while my daughter stood there taking it. October 28th. Derek throwing a plate that shattered inches from Caitlin's head. November 19th. Gloria dumping Caitlin's dinner in the trash, calling it inedible garbage, just like you. Sarah watched, pen never stopping. When the clips ended, she removed her glasses and looked at me directly. This is ironclad for assault, criminal harassment, and emotional abuse. She paused. But you want more than criminal charges. They lived in my house, on my generosity. My money paid for their comfort, while they made my daughter's life a nightmare. I kept my voice level, professional. But Sarah had known me 15 years. She could read subtext. Tell me about the house. Purchased in my name, January 2020, $340,000 cash. Never transferred the deed. No rental agreement, no lease, no documentation. Derek kept asking Caitlin to convince me to put it in their names. Let me guess. She resisted? She said it made her uncomfortable, that it was my gift, and changing it felt wrong. I smiled without humor. Turns out my daughter's instincts were better than mine. Sarah made notes. So legally Derek and Gloria are unlawful occupants. You could evict them. I could, but there's more. I slid a folder across. Derek's financial situation, 3 credit cards, total debt, $47,000. 2 DUI arrests that mysteriously disappeared. Paid off the right people, I'm guessing. And he's been underreporting insurance commissions. IRS has an open inquiry. Sarah's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. The feds love tax cases. I know. I've mediated enough of them. I leaned back. Here's what I want, Sarah. Criminal charges stick. Restraining order. Full custody for Caitlin. Eviction from my property. And I want Derek's financial house of cards to collapse. That's not revenge. That's justice. She closed her notepad. And it's completely achievable. The video evidence alone would win this. Everything else is insurance. I prefer thoroughness. Call it whatever helps you sleep. She stood, gathering files. I'll file for an emergency protective order this afternoon. Judge Morrison owes me a favor. Derek and Gloria won't be able to go within 500 feet of that house, or Caitlin. Criminal arraignment is Monday. And the eviction? Separate civil matter, but I have colleagues in property law. Given the domestic violence context, we can expedite it. She paused at the door. Vincent, you did the right thing. Those cameras, keeping records, documenting everything. Most victims don't have this ammunition. Most victims don't have a paranoid mediator for a father. After she left, I sat alone watching snowfall. Somewhere in Portland, Derek was being processed out of county lockup, his brother scraping together bail. Gloria was calling ex-husbands, searching for shelter. They thought last night was the disaster. The arrest, the exposure, the humiliation. They had no idea last night was just the opening move. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. This is Thomas Lindstrom. How is Caitlin? I've been worried. I replied, She's safe. Thank you for what you did. You may have saved her life. I should have acted sooner. I heard arguments before, but didn't want to intrude. I'm sorry. Don't apologize for his choices. You acted when it mattered. That's what counts. The dots appeared and disappeared several times. Finally, if you need anything, testimony, more evidence, anything, I'm here. Good people still existed, even on Christmas. The protective order came through at 6 p.m. Christmas Day. Judge Morrison, working from home, signed off on Sarah's emergency petition with unusual speed. Derek and Gloria were officially barred from coming within 500 feet of Caitlin, Olivia, or my property. Sarah called with the news, satisfaction clear in her voice. Derek's lawyer tried to argue he needed access to collect belongings. Morrison shut it down, said Derek gave up his property rights when he committed felony assault. His lawyer's already involved. Stephen Pierce, local guy, handles a lot of domestic cases. He's competent, but not brilliant. Derek's brother is paying? I checked. She paused. Pierce is already floating the... It was just an argument that got out of hand narrative. Typical. Let him. We have 73 days of evidence showing it wasn't. Monday morning, I sat in the courtroom gallery watching Derek's arraignment. He wore clothes his brother had brought, wrinkled khakis and a polo shirt, trying for respectable and landing somewhere around desperate. His face was drawn, the swagger completely gone. Gloria sat 3 rows behind him, separate counsel, looking like she'd aged a decade. When the DA read the charges, assault in the 4th degree, harassment, unlawful imprisonment, Derek's shoulders sagged. Pierce whispered something, but Derek barely responded. He looked like a man watching his life collapse in real time. The DA, a sharp woman named Chen, presented the video evidence on the courtroom screens. I watched the gallery reactions, gasps, headshakes, murmurs of disgust. When Derek's hand connected with Caitlin's face, someone behind me whispered, "Jesus." Derek's face flushed red, then drained to gray. His hands trembled on the defense table. He looked at his lawyer with something approaching panic, and Pierce could only shake his head slightly. The evidence was overwhelming. Judge Morrison set bail at $50,000. Derek's brother, sitting in the front row, put his face in his hands. That was $25,000 in actual cash, money his family probably didn't have easily accessible. Gloria's arraignment was shorter. Her lawyer, a nervous young woman who looked fresh out of law school, tried to argue that throwing wine wasn't assault. Morrison's expression suggested he'd heard stupider arguments, but not recently. Bail set at $20,000. I left before the proceedings finished. I'd seen what I needed to see. The moment Derek understood he wasn't charming his way out of this one. Wednesday afternoon, I got the call I'd been waiting for. My property attorney, Marcus Webb, a man who'd handled 3 previous eviction cases for my mediation clients. "Vincent, this is straightforward. The house is yours. No documentation transferring any rights, and now there's a restraining order preventing them from returning. We can file for immediate eviction. Given the domestic violence context, no judge will make you wait the standard 30 days. How fast? Emergency hearing, maybe Friday. You'll have possession by next week." He paused. "They'll probably try to claim tenant rights, argue they have 90 days, something like that. Won't work. They're unlawful occupants who committed violent crimes in your property. Do it." That evening I made dinner for Caitlin and Olivia. Spaghetti, nothing fancy, but Olivia ate 3 helpings. Caitlin picked at her food, her face healing but her eyes still haunted. "Dad?" She set down her fork. "What happens now? To the house, I mean." "That's your house. I bought it for you. Once Derek and Gloria are legally barred from it, we'll change the locks and you can move back in, if you want to." "I don't know if I can. All those memories." "Then we'll make new ones, better ones, or we'll sell it and buy something else entirely. It's your choice, not theirs." Olivia looked up from her spaghetti. "Can I paint my room purple?" I smiled. "When we go back, you can paint it any color you want." Later, after they'd gone to bed, I received an email from a contact in the Oregon Department of Revenue. Professional courtesy, one mediator to another, but the message was clear. IRS had formally opened an investigation into Derek Marshall's tax returns. Estimated unreported income, $78,000 over 2 years. I'd provided them with screenshots of Derek's commission statements, found in my camera footage of him leaving paperwork on the kitchen counter. Careless, sloppy, typical. Tax fraud at that level was a federal crime. 3 to 5 years potentially, though first-time offenders usually got probation, but it would destroy his insurance license, end his career, make him essentially unemployable in any financial services field. I forwarded the email to Sarah with a single line. "Christmas came late this year." She replied within minutes, "You're terrifying when you're methodical. Remind me never to cross you." I thought about Derek, probably sitting in his brother's cramped apartment, trying to figure out how his perfect life had disintegrated in 72 hours. Trying to understand how the old man he'd mocked had systematically dismantled everything he'd built on lies and violence. The cameras he'd never questioned, the house he'd never formally owned, the crimes he'd never bothered to hide properly, the taxes he'd thought he was clever avoiding, all of it documented, all of it weaponized, all of it perfectly legal. Derek had called me the old man like it was an insult, like age meant weakness, like experience meant nothing. He was learning otherwise. The eviction hearing was scheduled for January 8th, 2 weeks after Christmas. 2 weeks for Derek to stew, to panic, to make increasingly desperate calls to lawyers, who all told him the same thing: he had no case. I arrived at the courthouse early with Marcus Webb, my property attorney. He carried a leather briefcase that probably weighed more than Gloria's conscience. Inside, every receipt, every bank transfer, every utility bill from the past 5 years. Documentation had always been my strength as a mediator. People lie. Paper doesn't. Derek arrived 10 minutes late with Stephen Pierce, looking like he'd aged a decade. His brother trailed behind, face tight with the expression of someone who just realized his generosity had been weaponized against him. Gloria wasn't there. Smart on her lawyer's part. Separate defendants, separate liability. Judge Caroline Foster presided. I'd appeared before her twice in mediations, once for a business partnership dissolution, once for an inheritance dispute. She had a reputation for cutting through nonsense like a laser through butter. Pierce opened with the predictable argument. Your Honor, my client has resided in the property for 5 years. He's made substantial improvements to the home, invested his own money and labor. He has a legitimate expectation of continued occupancy. Evicting him with minimal notice, especially given his family situation. Mr. Pierce, Judge Foster's voice could freeze nitrogen. Your client is currently under criminal charges for assaulting his wife in that property. There's a restraining order preventing him from going within 500 feet. Are you seriously arguing he has a right to live somewhere he's legally prohibited from approaching? Pierce's face reddened. The restraining order is a separate matter. We're contesting. The restraining order is granted and active. Motion to dismiss denied before you even make it. She turned to Marcus. Mr. Webb, I assume you have documentation of ownership? Marcus stood, smooth as silk. Yes, Your Honor. The property at 847 Maple Street was purchased by Vincent Harrison on January 15th, 2020, for $340,000. Paid in full, cash. Title remains in Mr. Harrison's name. No lease agreement, no rental contract, no transfer of deed. Mr. Marshall and his mother have been residing there as guests of Mr. Harrison. Guests who wore out their welcome rather spectacularly, Judge Foster muttered, reviewing documents. Pierce tried again. Your Honor, my client made substantial improvements to the property. We have receipts totaling $12,000 for kitchen renovations, new appliances, landscaping. May I respond, Your Honor? I stood, and Foster nodded. I walked to the bench and placed my folder in front of her. Your Honor, I have complete financial records for the property. Purchase price, $340,000. 5 years of utilities, $38,000. New roof in 2022, $22,000. Heating system replacement in 2023, $8,500. Property taxes, insurance, maintenance. Total investment, $408,000. I turned to look at Derek. His face had gone from red to white, like watching the sunset in reverse. Mr. Marshall spent $12,000 renovating a kitchen I didn't authorize. If we're discussing investments, Your Honor, I believe mine substantially exceeds his. I smiled slightly. And if he's claiming ownership based on improvements, then logically I could demand he restore the property to its original condition. I have photographs from 2020. We could remove his kitchen upgrades entirely. Judge Foster's lips twitched. She was trying not to smile. Derek's hands were shaking on the defense table. I could see his jaw clenching, unclenching. The math was destroying him in real time. 12,000 versus 408,000. He'd thought he was building equity. He'd been living in my charity while abusing my daughter. Pierce made one last attempt. Your Honor, Mr. Marshall has a 5-year-old daughter. Evicting them creates significant hardship. The daughter, I said quietly, is my granddaughter. She's currently residing with me and her mother, safe from the man who hit her mother in front of her. The hardship argument is noted and rejected. Judge Foster closed the folder. Mr. Marshall, you have 30 days to vacate the premises. All property belonging to Mr. Harrison remains with Mr. Harrison. You may remove personal effects only. Any attempt to remove, damage, or otherwise interfere with Mr. Harrison's property will result in additional charges. The restraining order remains in full effect. She banged her gavel. We're adjourned. Derek sat frozen. His brother put a hand on his shoulder, but Derek shook it off violently. Pierce was already packing his briefcase, the body language of a lawyer who knew he'd lost before entering the room. As I walked past Derek's table, he looked up at me. His eyes were red-rimmed, furious, desperate. You're destroying my life. I stopped, looked down at him. No, Derek, I'm protecting my daughter's life. You destroyed your own. Outside, Marcus shook my hand. That was surgical. Foster barely let them speak. The law is very clear, and I had the documentation. I checked my phone. 3 messages from Sarah. Derek's criminal trial is in February. This was just the appetizer. Marcus nodded. Vincent, I've done a lot of evictions. That was the most professionally vindictive thing I've ever witnessed. Compliment intended. Thoroughness isn't vindictive. It's just thorough. But walking to my car, I allowed myself a small smile. Derek's face, when I'd laid out the numbers, 408,000 versus 12,000, had been worth every penny I'd invested in that house. He'd called me the old man, like experience was a liability. He was learning it was my greatest asset. The letters started arriving 3 days after the eviction hearing. The first one came to my condo, forwarded by Caitlin's lawyer. Handwritten, Derek's blocky print on lined paper. Dear Caitlin, I know I made mistakes. I was stressed about work and money, and I took it out on you. I'm sorry we fought. I want to make this right. Please give me a chance to be a better husband and father. I love you. I love Olivia. We can fix this. Derek. Caitlin read it at my kitchen table, tears streaming. Dad, maybe he means it. I read the letter again, slowly. Sweetheart, look at the words. He says, sorry we fought. Not sorry I hit you. Not sorry I hurt you. He's apologizing for an argument, not for assault. But he says he wants to change. He says he wants a chance. That's not the same as changing. I pointed to a line. See here? I was stressed about work and money. He's giving himself an excuse, blaming circumstances instead of taking responsibility. Caitlin's hands shook. We were married for 5 years. He wasn't always like this. I know, I took her hand, but he was like this enough. And more importantly, he's like this now. This letter isn't about you. It's about him getting back into the house before the eviction deadline. She wiped her eyes, reading it again. I watched the realization dawn, the manipulation visible once you knew where to look. The second letter arrived 2 days later, then a third. Then Gloria sent one. Dear Caitlin, I know we had our differences, but family is forever. Derek loves you so much. He's just been going through a difficult time. Please find it in your heart to forgive. Your loving mother-in-law, Gloria. Loving mother-in-law, Caitlin read aloud, voice flat. She threw wine in my face and called me worthless. That's love? It's desperation. I threw the letter in recycling. They're losing everything and need you to cave. Don't. She didn't. But Derek's world continued collapsing in satisfying ways. Mid-January, Sarah called with news. IRS formally filed charges. Tax evasion, $78,000 in unreported income over 2 years. Federal prosecutors are offering a plea. 3 years probation, full restitution plus penalties, and surrender of his insurance license. Will he take it? His lawyer's recommending it. Trial would mean potential prison time. Derek's already drowning financially. He can't afford to fight the feds. She paused. There's more. His insurance company received the IRS inquiry. They terminated him immediately. Company policy, you can't sell insurance with pending federal charges. I felt cold satisfaction. So he's unemployed. Unemployed, facing criminal charges, about to be evicted. His credit cards are maxed. His brother told Pierce he won't loan Derek more money. He's already out $25,000 for bail and legal fees. Sarah's voice carried professional approval. You're systematically destroying every pillar of his life. I'm not destroying anything. I'm removing support I should never have provided. He built his life on my generosity and my daughter's suffering. I'm just withdrawing both. Well, the withdrawal is working. Pierce called yesterday asking if you'd consider negotiating a settlement. No. That's what I told him. She laughed. He seemed surprised. I told him you weren't the negotiating type when it came to people who hit your daughter. Accurate assessment. Late January, Derek made one more play. A letter arrived, typed, formal, CC'd to a lawyer. It claimed Caitlin had encouraged him to make the kitchen improvements, that she'd promised him ownership, that the house was marital property, and he deserved half its value. I read it twice, then called Sarah. "He's lying," she said immediately. "We have 3 months of camera footage showing no such conversations. Oregon isn't a community property state. The house was never marital property because it was never in either of their names. But he's trying. He's desperate. The eviction date is February 1st. His unemployment benefits won't cover rent. The credit card companies are calling. The IRS wants their money. He's trying anything. Let him try." I kept my voice level. "Document every false claim. Add it to the evidence file." "Vincent, I have to ask, how far are you planning to take this?" I thought about Caitlin's split lip, about Olivia crying in the corner, about 5 years of my daughter being slowly ground down. "As far as the law allows." February arrived with freezing rain and poetic justice. The eviction date came. I'd hired a moving company. Derek and Gloria's belongings would be packed and placed in storage. Bill sent to Derek. They had 72 hours to collect everything or it would be disposed of. I didn't attend. Let the sheriff handle it. But Sarah sent me photos afterwards. Empty rooms, clean floors. The house that had been their prison, now just an empty building waiting for new memories. "Caitlin wants to move back in," I told Sarah that evening. "New furniture, fresh paint, different energy. She wants to reclaim it. Good for her. That takes courage. She has more of it than she thinks. She gets it from you." I didn't respond. Instead, I looked at the calendar. Derek's criminal trial was scheduled for February 15th. Valentine's Day weekend, appropriately enough. The trial where a jury would see 3 months of video evidence. The trial where Derek would learn, finally and irrevocably, that actions have consequences, and that underestimating the old man was the costliest mistake of his life. February 15th, Valentine's Day weekend. The criminal trial began with Derek wearing a suit that didn't fit anymore. He'd lost weight, stress eating away at him from the inside. The prosecution played the videos. All of them. Thomas's footage from the window. My security cameras from 3 months of documented abuse. The jury watched in silence as Derek's hand connected with Caitlin's face, as Gloria threw wine, as Olivia cried in the corner. Derek stared at the defense table, jaw clenched, refusing to look at the screens, but I watched the jury. 12 faces cycling through shock, disgust, anger. A woman in the front row wiped her eyes. A man in the back crossed his arms. Face hardening, the verdict came in 4 hours. Guilty on all charges. Derek's face crumbled. Not dramatically, he didn't cry or shout. He just deflated, like someone had opened a valve and let all the arrogance drain out. His shoulders sagged, his head dropped, his hands trembled on the table. Sentencing was set for March 1st. But before that came the final act, the eviction. February 28th, the last day of Derek and Gloria's occupancy. I arrived at 9 a.m. with Sheriff Martinez and a moving crew. The morning was cold, gray clouds threatening rain, appropriate weather for endings. Derek's brother's truck was in the driveway. Through the windows I could see movement, boxes, frantic packing, the chaos of people who'd run out of time. Martinez knocked. Derek answered. He looked like he'd been awake for days. Red-rimmed eyes, stubble, wrinkled clothes. Behind him, Gloria was throwing items into garbage bags with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before. Multiple divorces had apparently taught her something about quick exits. "Mr. Harrison?" Derek's voice was flat, dead. "Come to watch?" "Come to ensure my property is handled correctly." I handed Martinez the court order. "Shall we?" Inside, the house looked ransacked. Boxes everywhere, furniture askew, half-empty rooms. Gloria saw me, and her face twisted with pure hatred. "This is your fault. All of this." "No, Gloria. This is Derek's fault, and yours. I'm just the consequence." She grabbed a lamp from the side table. I pulled out my phone, showing her the receipt. "Purchased by me, August 2020. $132. It stays." Her face went red, then white. She set the lamp down like it had burned her. Derek appeared with an armful of photo albums. "These are mine." Personal items are allowed. Photos, documents, clothing, nothing else. The couch. Mine. Receipt from 2019. I showed him my folder. I had receipts for everything. Every piece of furniture, every appliance, every decoration. 5 years of purchases. All documented. All mine. Derek's hands shook. The album slipped, spilling photos across the floor. Him and Caitlin on their wedding day. Olivia as a baby. Christmas mornings. Birthday parties. The life he'd destroyed, captured in fading prints. He didn't pick them up, just stood there, staring at them. Derek, I kept my voice neutral. The moving crew will pack your personal belongings. You have 2 hours, then you leave. Olivia, his voice cracked. I have rights. She's my daughter. You have supervised visitation. Every other Saturday, 3 hours, supervised by Child Protective Services. The family court order is very clear. I handed him a copy. Break those rules, and you lose even that. His face contorted. Rage, grief, desperation, all fighting for dominance. You took everything from me. My wife, my daughter, my house, my job. I took nothing. I stepped closer, voice cold. You hit your wife. You lost your job by evading taxes. You lost this house because it was never yours. Every consequence you're facing is the result of your choices, not mine. You self-righteous. He shoved me, hard, hands flat against my chest. I didn't budge. 64 years old, but I'd been ready for this. I'd seen it coming in his eyes. Martinez moved faster. Mr. Marshall, step back, now! Derek realized his mistake instantly. The color drained from his face. It wasn't... You just violated the restraining order. Martinez was already reaching for his handcuffs. Physical contact with Vincent Harrison within 500 feet of the residence? That's a clear violation? No, wait. Derek backed up, hands raised. But Martinez wasn't waiting. Turn around. Hands behind your back, Gloria screamed. Derek, don't! But he was already in cuffs. Already being read his rights again. Already being escorted to the patrol car parked outside. I stood in my living room, and watched through the window as they loaded Derek into the back seat. His face pressed against the glass, looking at the house. His house, he'd thought. The kingdom he'd ruled with fists and cruelty. Now just a building he'd never enter again. Gloria grabbed her purse and ran. Didn't even finish packing. Just ran to the truck and drove away, leaving half her belongings scattered across the bedroom floor. Martinez came back inside. Additional charges will be filed. That was impressively stupid of him. Desperation makes people stupid. I looked around at the chaos. How long until the movers finish? 2 hours. We'll inventory everything that stays, everything that goes. You'll have full documentation. After they left, I walked through the empty rooms. 5 years of Derek and Gloria, slowly erased. In Olivia's room, I found drawings on the wall. Crayon stick figures labeled Mommy and Grandpa and me. No Derek. Even at 5, she'd known. I took photos of the drawings before the painters came. Caitlin would want them. Outside, the rain finally started. Cold February rain washing the driveway clean. March came with unexpected warmth. Early spring in Portland, cherry blossoms erupting like hope against gray skies. Derek's sentencing hearing was brief. Judge Morrison wasn't inclined toward mercy. 18 months probation for the assault and restraining order violation. 3 years for the tax evasion, running concurrent, community service, anger management classes, and the restraining order extended indefinitely. Mr. Marshall, Morrison said, looking down from the bench, you beat your wife in front of your daughter. You violated a court order. You evaded federal taxes. You've shown no genuine remorse, only self-pity. If you violate probation even once, you'll serve the maximum sentence in custody. Do you understand? Derek stood like a statue. Yes, Your Honor. I didn't attend the sentencing. Sarah sent me the transcript. I read it over coffee in my condo while Caitlin and Olivia moved back into the house. Their house now, legally transferred to Caitlin's name. A gift with no strings, no Derek, no memories of violence. Gloria fled to Arizona. Her first ex-husband took her back with conditions. She called Caitlin once, voice slurred with wine, rambling about family and forgiveness. Caitlin hung up and blocked the number. Some people never learn. Derek found work as a warehouse loader. 37 years old with a criminal record and no professional license, his insurance career obliterated. The job paid $14 an hour. After probation fees, restitution to the IRS, and child support, he netted about $800 a month. His brother stopped taking his calls after Derek asked for money one too many times. The divorce finalized in April. Caitlin got full custody. Derek got every other Saturday supervised visits, which he attended exactly twice before stopping altogether. Too humiliating, apparently, having a social worker watch him try to connect with the daughter who flinched when he raised his voice. By May, Olivia stopped asking about him. I visited Caitlin in early June. The house looked different. New furniture, painted walls, curtains that actually let light in. She'd turned Derek's man cave into an art studio. Olivia's drawings covered the walls, bright splashes of color replacing the dark leather and sports memorabilia. We sat on the back porch, Caitlin and I, watching Olivia chase butterflies in the garden I'd planted the previous week. 6 years old now, gap-toothed smile, fearless. "Dad," Caitlin handed me coffee. "Thank you." "For what?" "You know for what." She looked at the house, at her daughter, at the life she'd rebuilt. "For seeing what I couldn't, for acting when I was too scared, for being thorough." I smiled at that. Thoroughness is just another word for caring. Derek's lawyer called yesterday. Wanted to negotiate reduced child support. "What did you say?" "I said the court order stands. If he can't pay it, that's his problem, not mine." She sipped her coffee. "I sound like you now, cold, practical." "You sound strong. There's a difference." Olivia ran over, holding a butterfly she'd somehow caught. "Grandpa, look, it's purple." "That's a painted lady's," I told her. "They migrate thousands of miles. Toughest butterflies in the world." "Like Mommy!" Caitlin laughed, wiping her eyes. "Exactly like Mommy." That evening, driving home through Portland traffic, I thought about Derek, about Gloria, about the empire they'd built on cruelty and my generosity, and how thoroughly it had collapsed. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired, satisfied, yes. Justice had been served. Caitlin was safe. Olivia was thriving. The law had worked exactly as designed, but I also thought about a little girl growing up without a father. Not because he'd died or disappeared, but because he'd chosen violence over love, chosen pride over change, chosen to be the villain in his own story. Was that my fault? No. Derek made those choices long before I intervened, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't weigh on me. Every time I saw Olivia's drawings, always 3 people, never 4, I felt the absence, the space where a father should have been. Justice isn't victory, it's just balance. The scales, finally even. The books, finally closed. I parked at my condo and sat in the silence, watching the sun set over Portland. 64 years old, 30 years as a mediator. I'd seen hundreds of families destroyed by violence, greed, betrayal, but this was different. This was mine. Derek had called me the old man like it was an insult, like experience was weakness, like patience was irrelevant. He'd learned otherwise, expensively. And somewhere in a cheap apartment across town, he was learning another lesson, that consequences don't expire, that bridges once burned don't rebuild themselves, that some mistakes cost more than money. They cost everything. I finished my coffee, cold now, bitter, and went inside. Tomorrow, Caitlin wanted to help building Olivia's new swing set, normal grandfather things, the kind of moments Derek would never have, the kind of moments he'd traded for control he never really had. The old man won, not through strength or rage, but through preparation, documentation, and understanding that the law, wielded correctly, is the sharpest blade of all. Derek had thought he was smarter, thought charm could substitute for character, thought the old man was too busy to notice. He'd thought wrong, and in the end, that mistake cost him everything worth having. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.